What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Today, I'm interviewing Keith Collins out of Northern California, Sacramento area. What's up, Keith?
Hey, Dave. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. So you are a rock star in the Mortgage Coach community. I think I interviewed you for the first time, what was about 6 months ago?
Pretty soon. It was recent for sure.
Yeah, and then you were part of Script Palooza. For anybody who didn't see Keith, he did about 45 million last year in production, around 150 families served, and he is a market leader, so he manages a large region that's killing it in NorCal. So Keith, I am trying to bring leadership to the Mortgage Coach community to help them crush it in spring home buying season. You know,
Okay.
over 50% of the production for most loan officers gets done Q2, Q3, and specifically, yeah, no, it's like really it's close to 60% gets done in those two quarters. You know, and I'm a big believer that how you start spring home buying season is going to have a lot to do with how you end. So I want to help people get really good at having a great pre-approval conversation with a springtime home buyer, great at having a first-time home buyer conversation. I'd like to focus with you right now. How are you having conversations with spring home buyers, and how are you integrating Mortgage Coach into that sales experience?
Yeah. So, like we've talked about scripting a little bit, and I think, you know, Bill Hart wrote a great book for the mortgage industry, right? And one of the things he talks about is bold ties responses. And that's something that I've been working on a lot recently. We talk a lot about scripting, and I don't know if scripting, I think sometimes it's hard to be really authentic with scripting in a 5-sentence script rather than just throwing off some bold ties responses. And kind of with like Mortgage Coach as well, is like you were asking me previously, like what strategies do you think are best right now? And I think the loan officer that has the largest tool bag is the one that wins. But the loan officer that listens to the customer and then deploys the right tool in the moment that the client needs it is the one that's going to win the client, right? But we can't just, you know, dump the whole tool bag on the desk. They're not going to care. But we've got to ask great questions to find out, well, where are we going to meet them and how are we going to meet them? I've heard this a few times. I don't know who coined this, but people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And I think on the Script of Palooza, Josh Metal hit it really well, where he said, like, I'm trying to lighten up the mood and just have fun with clients. And that's really resonated with me most since that Script of Palooza call. Is I'm trying to really focus on how that client's leaving feeling after talking with me. And I think that presenting a very clear, clean, advice-based consultation that's fun and uplifting, but you know, great numbers and relevant is going to leave them feeling confident that the person that they're using, is the right person for them. Does that make sense, man? Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And I had forgotten about that whole fun script that Josh had and what he brought. And so I'm going to make sure I add that, because I'm currently writing a scripting, playbook, scripts greatest hits. So thank you for that reminder. I'm going to add that to the list. So how are you opening up the conversation? How are you positioning yourself with a home buyer that meets with you right now?
Yeah, so it really just depends on the client, right? Because the clients I get clients coming from all different places, and they have, each one of them is looking at something different. You know, you got first-time home buyers wanting down payment assistance. You have move-up buyers that are trying to navigate how do we buy and sell or sell and buy. And so I think like I said, it starts with great questions. But the way that I'm always teeing up the total cost analysis, Mortgage Coach kind of advice-based process is I say, I don't necessarily think people in 2019 are getting the wrong loan, but I don't necessarily know if they're getting the right loan. And our process is going to help you clearly identify the right loan based on your goals for the house. So that's something that I'll typically say like every single time, because what I try to do is I don't want to put others down, but I want to drop like little verbal bombs that make the client think. And those are what I said, like my bold ties responses. And I'm constantly just trying to find new ones that I'm deploying. I've heard you say our advice matters. That's a really good one. I find solutions that other people don't see, right? Like you don't know, again, that's not going to be for every single conversation, but if you have these little bold ties responses, and I've got a list of like 20 or 30. If you have these all, my job is to show you or help you, depending on how the conversation is going, to help you ask the right questions, right? You know, I can solve the problem that you're having. What boxes do we need to check off? I believe in educated buyers make educated mortgage decisions. That's Jeremy Forcier. So like I have a whole list of these, they're kind of in my brain. And then just based on the conversation, I kind of just try to throw them off to make the client stop and think that Keith potentially has a different process. But I don't typically roll in the first conversation with a customer. I don't try to talk for 2 minutes about our process. I try to quickly jump in and start asking questions to identify like, what do I need to talk about that's going to be extremely relevant to them? Because for me, I'm not necessarily getting shopped in the first conversation. When rates are coming up is usually during the time frame of them being approved and then looking for homes. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. It does.
That's for me. I don't usually get a phone call that's like, "Hey Keith, I'm shopping lenders. What's your rate?" That rarely happens. But I want to start with a very clear advice-based process. So then when rate comes up, I've got a lot to go back to, and they already kind of feel what it's going to like to work with me, what it's going to be like to work with me. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Before we get into, you know, positioning the total cost analysis and how you pre-frame your presentation, anything else you say almost every time to position yourself uniquely? Is there any other, you know, think of it as openings that you say often?
Yes, I talk about our process. So, and not to repeat this, I went this over on the script of Palooza, but like, I think it's really important to indicate to the client that you have a process, articulate what that process is, because when that happens, I don't know why, but it seems like the clients just kind of follow your process because really they're looking for your lead. And if your agents are teeing you up in the right way, they're coming into the conversation with you like ready to rock and ready for Keith to kind of impress a little bit. So I always tell the client like our process is, and I run through it. You know, we have our easy app. We're gonna email that to you. Takes you 10, 15 minutes on any mobile device, tablet, desktop, computer. I'll get a notification when it's complete, and then we go to work. And I'm going to come back to you with 4 major things. You'll have lots of questions, but I'm always going to come back with these 4 things because we find this is what clients most want to know. Based on what you said you wanted to spend on a monthly basis, what does that get you? What's the max price that you're qualified for? Based on all the loan programs available, which ones do I believe are the right ones and why? That's total cost analysis. What are the rates and payments? And then what's the no surprise number? So what's the number that you're going to need to make this work that is never going to be higher at close than what I'm telling you now?
Love that. So those 4 things, I'm not going to ask you to repeat
every
it
time
because it's recorded. I recommend you go back and listen to that again. So now let's get into the total cost analysis or anything else you want to show on your screen, and let's walk through that. And you kind of pre-frame the total cost analysis. If there is anything else you say to pre-frame it before you start walking a client through it, let us know what that is.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I mean, because I'm not, you know, a lot of times I was talking with a client this morning and I told them they'll have a total cost analysis. So it really just depends on the conversation I'm having with the customer and if I'm trying to elevate what we do over and above somebody else. Because a lot of times that first conversation is 10 minutes or something like that, and you're just trying to figure out goals and dreams. But if I feel like I need to show off a little bit, then I start talking about those things. But if the client, a lot of times when you just tell them you got a process, you ask the questions, and here's what we need to do, they just kind of roll with it. And then we jump into our consultation, which is either in person, over the phone. If it's over the phone, ideally it's like Zoom, or at a minimum, I'm having them click the link for Mortgage Coach Edge so that I can kind of impress them with the technology and make it a little bit interactive. Because again, I want them to like have a cool experience in working with me. A lot of times I see loan officers, if we're ever getting a quote, it's just the generic email that comes over. Here's your rate, here's your payment, here's your cash to close. And that's lame. So I'm trying to impress them in the process. When we have the consultation with the customer, I always start with, again, when we first talked about, I'm prepared to go over those 4 things. We're going to go over those 4 things, and I remind them what they were. But what I want to know from you guys is what questions you have right now. We have 30 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour allotted. I want to make sure that you walk away from this conversation, meeting, consultation, comfortable and feeling like you have all your questions answered. What questions do you have? And then I literally write them down and I repeat them. So they'll say like, what's mortgage insurance? What are interest rates? What's escrow? Am I pre-approved? Whatever it is, I'm writing those ones down and then I'm repeating them we go through those first, and then I check them off and at the end of the consultation, so that like they understand all the questions that they had are clearly answered and covered. I also will always have a lot of stuff up. So I've got mortgage interest rates, or like ready. I got the total cost analysis teed up, but I have like my commitment to keys, which I can show you. I have a bunch of different diagrams and things teed up because I never know how the conversation is going to go, but I always want to be ready to show them information. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. So let's pull up a TCA and go through that.
Okay, so this one right here, I'm showing, this isn't one that I did necessarily for a client. I did this one just for you. But I do this similar thing for a client a lot. You talk about strategy, like what strategies are you using right now? The seller buy down's a great one. Rent versus own's a great one. But I wanted to talk about an actual like loan strategy that I think is winning transactions that not a lot of people are talking about, and that's financed mortgage insurance.
Perfect. Yeah, no, this is a beautiful strategy. Let's talk about it.
So normally if I was presenting to this a client, the columns would be strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3, but to kind of show everybody here, I called it what it is: monthly mortgage insurance, lender paid mortgage insurance, finance mortgage insurance. And real simply here, we're going through it with a client, and I'm checking boxes with them. So I say, hey, there's a few boxes I want to check here. One, first box I want to check is payment. We got to go over that. I want you to understand what the payment is. Second box we want to check is cash to close, right? And we go over the cash to close. I show them the more info tab, how to use it. Like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. And we kind of go through that. Second box I want to check is savings over. Third box I want to check is savings over 60 months. And so I show them like what program here saves them the most over that 60-month or 5-year period of time. Interest in MI over 15 years. But then what I tell them, and this is kind of like my right hook, is I believe that my job is to show you things that maybe you weren't going to think about. And this is one of those things that I think a lot of clients are appreciative that we brought up. And that is what program is actually going to provide you the most equity during your time horizon of ownership. And I really love that this one here will show them the equity, the most equity, or the highest equity position that they're going to have. Does that kind of make sense?
Makes total sense. So this is where you've gone from checkers, like most loan officers, to chess. You're showing different programs over time, and then you're showing that, I care about your long-term interest. And whether you said it or not, you're saying, hey, I'm gonna show you how to build wealth with real estate by making smarter mortgage decisions. And that, correct, to me, it's powerful. And it's valuable. I mean, that's what customers want.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I love this because the financed MI, like this will win transactions for me all the time, because I can have, like in this scenario here with the financed MI, it's $67 cheaper per month in monthly MI with the same interest rate, but I can almost be 0.25% higher in rate and being shopped, and then roll out financed MI and be still lower in payment, because a lot of times they want lower payment. And then when I go through and show them, over a 15-year period of time, the financed MI is going to save you, $5,000 in interest. Usually that's a strategy that's going to pull them away from somebody who's just flashing a lower rate.
Absolutely. You're demonstrating that you have their best interest in mind. You're showing them an uncommon level of transparency and value, and it's not taking you any time at all. Here, scroll to the top real quick. I just want to see, you're very intentional about your branding. You've got your company brand, you've got your personal brand. Guys, this is how you execute if you want to win big during spring home buying season. Make sure that every one of your clients is getting a total cost analysis. I love the way you opened it. I'm going to be putting a link down below to a greatest hits of mortgage coach scripts. It will become a LinkedIn article, but for now, it'll be a Google Doc. Check it out down below. Keith, anything else you want to show us, just knowing that I'm trying to crush and help the mortgage coach community have a competitive advantage, with spring buyers? Anything else that you're doing that you think would be valuable, whether it's mortgage coach related or not?
Yeah. So, you talked about like what are spring buying strategies, and I was trying to focus on spring buying strategies that are around mortgage coach, but there's some things that we're doing. Our market's hot right now. Some other markets across the country are extremely hot, but I mean, we're back to multiple offers. So for us, like seller buy down strategy isn't necessarily as great because sellers aren't necessarily having problems potentially selling homes. But progressive offers is something that I'm educating my agents and my customers about right now. Have you guys heard about progressive offers before?
Not that term. Tell me.
Okay,
yeah.
So like, I think it's important for a customer to, in this market, and I can talk about, like why I think it's a great time to buy still. And I think that this market has a lot more run in it. We can jump into the stats and all that, because the strategy I'm rolling out is a very aggressive strategy, but I can back it up with market data to support like, hey, I think we have another 5 years of this. But I think it's important the client has a walk away number when they're buying a home, right? Like, this is the number that if the home goes above this number, you walk away and you're cool, right? You're not going to wake up on Saturday morning thinking, gosh darn it, we missed that home and we could have went $5,000 more and it really wouldn't have been that big of a deal. So the progressive offer is, we don't have to always go to the walk away number, but how do we position ourselves in such a way that our offer is always the best offer on the table? So let's just say the walk away number is $350,000, meaning that's the top number that they're going to pay for that home. And right now offers are $330,000. So the client would write an offer at $330,000, but their offer is $1,000 higher than any verified offer up to $350,000. So our offer is always the best offer by $1,000 up to $350,000. Does that make sense?
It is. I like it.
So that's something that I'm educating our agents in this market to do. And I think for me, the biggest opportunity that I have is with listing agents. And so when my offers are getting really creative and we're doing things like a 15-day close with no loan contingency because they're already upfront underwritten, I'm showing off a little bit for the listing agent too, because that's that opportunity for me to reach out and get business from that agent, whether we got the offer accepted or not. And again, I'm trying to position ourselves in such a way that our clients are always putting their best foot forward in a competitive market. But also I'm trying to bring strategies that maybe listing agents haven't seen before.
I love that. So one last question before we wrap this up. I know you were active in our Facebook group, and there was a whole script question going like, how do I train my realtors to refer me as a mortgage coach? And I know you called out the fact that you really liked some of Josh's scripting, and
yeah,
you said you were going to create some type of a video on that. How are you currently training your realtors to refer you and making note of the fact that you have value with the mortgage coach? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so the idea of the total cost analysis, I've never really put that out there before from a video standpoint. So I have the top 10% of realtors in my market in a targeted Facebook campaign. So I found them all. It was kind of difficult to do, but I found them all, uploaded them to Facebook, and then Facebook identified the majority of them, and now I can do direct targeted ads to them. So the idea in that video is, like, I don't want to put other loan officers down. But how do I position ourselves in such a way that the total cost analysis is so critical into today's buyer process? And like, if your loan officers are not presenting that to them, like, what are your buyers potentially missing? So I'm still kind of crafting that, because like, as a market leader, I'm also trying to recruit loan officers. So I don't necessarily want to like really piss some other people off by positioning myself in that way. So I'm still crafting that message, but absolutely, like, after that, I called a few of my agents to talk to them about how are we crafting the conversation with our customers to get them to talk to me when they're saying that they are already pre-approved, because our agents know that they want them to work with us. And so there's two kind of things that I'm saying. One, I'm using like the bus analogy, where like the agent, I'm training the agent to say something like, hey, look, you're hiring me to drive the bus down the road, and this bus is you buying a home. And on this bus, I picked everybody. I know everybody on the bus. I know the home inspector. I know the pest inspector, right? I know the title company. I know the roof company. I also know the lender. And by having these people picked on the bus, I can control what's going to happen. And that's why you've hired me. Now, when you bring your own lender, you bring a stranger on the bus. And I'm okay with strangers on the bus, but I don't really have any control about what's going to happen in that process. So if you're going to bring your realtor in, I would love to at least have if you're going to bring your loan officer in, I also like to have my loan officer on the bus, just in case anything happens. So that's kind of what I always did, but I love Josh's explanation about the total cost analysis. So when they say, hey, we're pre-approved already, with another lender, they literally say, did your lender send you a total cost analysis? Like, that's a very closed-in question, yes or no. And I would say the majority of online lenders probably aren't going to have presented a total cost analysis. So then they say no and say, oh, wow, that's interesting. This is one of the largest financial transactions of your life. I believe it's really important that you know all the options, but more importantly, more important than knowing all the options is what option is best for you based on how long you say you're going to be in the home, knowing that this is one of the largest transactions you guys are going to do. I would highly recommend that you at least talk to our lender with no obligation so you can identify what loan programs are available to you and which one's the best for you based on how long you're going to be in the home. So training my agents to do that. And so what I'll do is I'll actually record that script and then I just text it to them.
Nice. I like that. So quit sharing your screen. I want to wrap this up just on video as you and I wrap this up. Guys, if you're getting takeaways, share them down below. In comments, if you got value like this, I'm going to put a link to the scripts. I pulled it up just a minute ago while you were talking. And so anybody who loves what Keith is doing, give us a like. Keith, you're killing it in our community. I really appreciate this. Any last thoughts? You know, you're both a producer and you're a leader. Any last thoughts for, you know, loan officers that you lead or loan officers that are part of our community?
You know, what I'm seeing right now is yes, in terms of people that you're leading, like, you got to be sold on you and you got to be sold on the company that you're at. And every company's got great stuff, right? And I think what I'm seeing right now is a lot of loan officers value propping loan programs, and that's really boring. Come up with your story with your agents as to why you love doing what you do and working where you work. You can find it at any mortgage company. But you've got to be like, you can't, there's no middle ground right now. You can't be wishy-washy about your position in this market, who you are in this market, and the company that you're working for. And so just being like 100% all in right now, agents can see it. You know, when you're in a presentation doing a talk and you're not all in on your mortgage company, you're not all in on you and your ability to be awesome in this marketplace, they know, your clients know. People see through unauthentic people, I believe, right now. And so I think that's it, right? Like, if you want to go do big business in this market, you got to be all in and sold on you and the company that you're at. So take the time to figure out your story, clearly articulate your story, why you do what you do, why you're awesome, what you do, and why you work where you work. Because like, it's really needed right now.
I love that. And I don't know how many times you said the word all in. We both are, I think you're getting, no, don't be sorry. We got to promote our boy, Bill Hart. He's got a podcast called All In.
All In.
Incredible. I mean, I watched the first one because Bill is a personal friend of mine. He's a coach in our community. I watch every one of them because I'm a fan. And I'm with you. You need to be all in. Also, I think you were referred by Bill Hart. That's how you became part of the mortgage coach community. White Collar Warrior. If you have not read that, read it, because that's the other thing. You need to be a white collar warrior in this market. There is disruption happening. There are technology companies being successful in the mortgage business. There are marketing companies. Everybody says Quicken is a tech company that does mortgages. No, Quicken is a marketing company that does mortgages. And if you want to crush it, you need to become a local local leader. I love that. You got to get clear on your why. You got to be all in. You need to use technology. You need to build personal brand, and you're doing that, brother. So thank you for the time you've spent here in the mortgage coach community. Have an awesome day. And remember, folks, give us a like, share it with your mortgage friends. And Keith, I'm looking forward to our next interview together, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.